rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Well, the countdown is on. That's right, the countdown to the end of 2025 is on its last legs. Yeah, out with the old, in with the new. Just don't throw me out with the trash, okay? My kids all think that I'm old. And believe me, I am not nearly as ancient as the ancient one. My mother. Anyway, oh goodness. We're going out with a serious bang. You know, the mainstream media, I think the 2025 is the death of them. Yeah, they're no longer doing like their exposés, their independent journalism, the investigative journalism, all of that stuff. Yeah. None of that. Yeah, well, you know, these independent journalists are actually putting a fork and a stake and cross, and I don't know what else you want to call them, the vampires that are running around in the mainstream media. Yeah, they're doing a fantastic job. I mean, think about it. We had Andy Ngo down in Portland dealing with Antifa all the time. We had Miranda Devine, although I don't know if I could technically call her a independent journalist, but she because I think she works for the New York Post. But anyway, we had Miranda Devine break a huge story in 2020, which should have tanked Joe Biden. Yeah. So, all of that done. And now we have this young man, 23-year-old young man who has caught the attention wildfire. You know, I'm just waiting for one of my videos to go viral. But this guy, well, I mean, I'll be honest with you. Hats off to him. Seriously. He did a fantastic job. And he found this thing and he did a fantastic job. He's, the talk of the town now, the talk of many towns now. And he has definitely made his mark in the world. And hopefully he's going to continue to make his mark as he moves forward. We'll get into that and more of that here in just a little bit. But first, oh, she's chomping at the bit for this. Anyway, it is Nana of JJS. It is her. She is up. She is on deck. She's standing in the batter's circle, or the on-deck circle, I should say. She is on deck for the Pledge of Allegiance. I see her over there. She's standing up. She's like, she's not nervous at all. She's like all shaking and, shaking everything out, getting all loose, doing the little vocal cord kind of thing. Yeah, she's over there doing all that vocal cord stuff. She's getting ready. So let's go ahead and welcome her into the spotlight for tonight's Pledge of Allegiance. If you are of mind, please stand. Remove your hat if you're wearing one. Like me. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with Nana as she recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And, of course, I thank you, Nana, for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting or performing the pledge in your style, then take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, and attach it to an email and send it off to me. Send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will get you into the rotation. I'm looking for 21, so if you haven't done it yet, please do so. I'd love to get 21 before the end of 2025. Also, too, by the way, if you do it on your phone, like you record yourself on your phone, reportedly there's this option known as the share option, not the sunny option, but the share option. And it will allow you to do the exact same thing, attach it to an email and send it off to fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will get you into the rotation as soon as possible. All right, tonight's headline sponsor. I'm wearing one of their fabulous shirts. I am actually wearing the Stars and Bars shirt. It looks like the American flag, but it's not actually the American flag, because if you were to wear the American flag as a piece of clothing, that, of course, would be illegal, according to Title IV. You get away with it, though, because it's not the actual flag. It is a representation of the flag that is being worn. But anyway, the Stars and Bars, baby, Stars and Bars, I'm sorry. That actually references, believe it or not, one of the other flags, so I just use it. But I'm wrong. I'm incorrect on that. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm wearing the colors of Old Glory, the good old red, white, and blue, right here. And you can get this shirt that I'm wearing right now at theflagshirt.com. If you head on over to theflagshirt.com, you can check out all of their patriotic styles. And, all of their patriotic styles. And you can check them all out at theflagshirt.com. Men's, women's, made in the USA, kids, accessories, all wonderful in the red, white, and blue. And, you know, America's got its 250th birthday coming up. You know, you probably should grab yourself some wonderful patriotic clothing, because let me tell you, I was sitting there thinking about it. You had America's 200th birthday in 1976. And now we're at 2026. And we got another 50 years here. And it's kind of like... Yeah. So you had 1776, 1876, 1976, and now we're at 2026, 2176, or wait a minute, no, 2076 would be the 50th. So 2076, how many of us are going to make it there? So you really ought to liven it up for the 250th. Because you'll never get to another one of the milestone birthdays of this country. So you might as well liven it up and get yourself some patriotic clothing. Head off to theflagshirt.com and get them all. And by the way, if you order $75 or more, you will receive free shipping from theflagshirt.com. But I know not everybody wants to order $75 worth of material or from, the flag shirt. I know you may want to you only like the one shirt, or maybe only ordering some accessories, and you really can't get to the $75 with what you like. So, and that's okay, because I am going to help you out. So here's how you do this. You go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online. That's flagshirt.americanperspective.online. And you will be presented with a coupon code. Take that coupon code, copy it, paste it in the promo code box when you go to check out at theflagshirt.com, and you will receive $5 off your order on American Perspective. Head on over to flagshirt.americanperspective.online. Be presented with that coupon code, copy and paste it into the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com, and you will receive $5 off your order on American Perspective. Head on over to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized. All right. I like their shirts. I got to get more. they've got some good, well, I'm kind of hoping for some really good America 250 ones. They got some decent, they got some good ones now, but I'm looking for more. So, more for that. Anyway. Okay, let's see. Well, obviously, the, Nick Shirley has scooped all of the major news organizations. I'm telling you, folks, independent journalism today, especially because of the fact that you could go and pretty much anybody can just, start up a YouTube channel. I mean, think about this show. I've been doing this show for about 5 years. Think about this show. I've done it on essentially my own budget. There really hasn't been a lot of stuff here that has been completely expensive. Now, granted, I have bought professional audio gear and I've got it available for myself, obviously, and I've done some other things, but realistically, in the grand scheme of things, even this show really isn't run on anything but a shoestring budget. And today, all you really need in order to be an investigative journalist today and to become respected is to get that one big scoop. I mean, Woodward and Bernstein did it back with the Watergate scandal. They've ridden that for decades. So, this Nick Shirley gentleman who has a YouTube channel, Rumble channel, as well as an X account. And he goes around and he finds this fraud in Minnesota and he catches the eye because, again, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. You never know what's going to go viral in terms of a video. Well, this one absolutely went viral. And it went to the point where even the Vice President of the United States has noticed. That's right. J.D. Vance has publicly praised YouTuber Nick Shirley's reporting on the alleged fraud, daycare fraud in Minnesota. He's like, he posted on X, this dude has done far more useful journalism than any of the winners of the 2024 Pulitzer Center prizes. J.D. Vance is not wrong. And in fact, the New York Times and several others or a couple, I think there was one other newspaper, but I know the New York Times was one of them. They received some Pulitzer prizes for lies. That's right. For those of you that don't recall, they received a Pulitzer Prize when they posted or wrote the story about how the 51 intelligence folks signed that letter and called the Hunter Biden laptop a Russian disinformation. Yeah. Anyway. So, yeah. Let's just say that there's enough people out here that are now starting to realize that in today's day and age, information and the information technology sector, all it takes is for you to be able to be curious enough and investigative enough in order to break into a story, and especially in a story like this. This is amazing in terms of the amount of stuff that he has uncovered single-handedly. And so, but to be honest with you, remembering, of course, that you really should have a little bit of humility when it comes to this thing. And Shirley, of course, credits his crew. He credits his crew for all of this. One individual in particular is who he is crediting. And this guy is older gentleman by the name of, let's see, what I'm trying to find his name here really quick. I'm going to get all the way up to the top here because the top of this article that I'm reading. So, a Minneapolis area man identified as David I thought there was a last name. But anyway, this person identified as David is the one that brought it to him. And he at least gives credit to this guy. He gives credit to him. Nick Shirley on X posted, Tim Walz and the fraudsters aren't escaping this one. In one day, my crew and I uncovered $110 million in fraud, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. We, the people, simply work too hard and pay too much in taxes to allow this to happen. They must be held accountable. That's right. So Nick has David on. It's about a 4-minute, this clip is about a 4.5-minute clip. And I'd like to play it to how they describe and they talk about how this, I mean, look at Nick. Nick is standing there. He's in a freaking sweatshirt. That's, I mean, you know, I recall back with the whole, you know, you had to have a coat and a tie and all this other stuff in order to be credited. No, this guy did it. He scooped them all. But anyway, here is the video where he is talking to David to try and explain everything that is going on in this particular scenario. So let's go ahead and take a listen.
How deep is this fraud here inside of Minnesota?
It is far worse than anybody can imagine. You heard it's 7 to 10 billion and maybe more, and now the numbers have been revised and put out there publicly that they think it's more like 8 billion. How I got involved is that where my office is here in Minneapolis, I'm sort of in the heart of all of this fraud, and I would see these child care centers. I said, well, there aren't any kids there. It's the middle of the day, and all I see are a couple of guys standing out front smoking. And then I'd go by another daycare and I'd see the same thing. I said, well, where do these kids play? And so I started to go online and look, and I said, this place is licensed for 80 children. They had 0 children. Every time I went by there, they never had a single child there. Then I started to see all these transportation companies going around, and it was always a Somali driver. And I said, well, that's great. They're out there transportation, contributing, but they never had a passenger, never, ever once. And I said, well, what is all this transportation? What are they doing? So then I found out that in Minnesota, they have something called non-emergency medical transportation. So this is going to the dentist's office, therapy, whatever it might be. And I said, well, how many of these companies are there? And the research came back that there are 1,020 of them, and more than 800 of them are Somali-owned. Nobody from the state of Minnesota ever cross-checks to see if any rides were ever actually provided. All they did was write the check.
So right here we have all this paperwork. And how are you getting all this information about the fraud?
A lot of it is through my own research. And then I have some contacts at the Capitol going back many, many years. And so the data that I'm getting is 100% accurate, coming directly from research done by people at the state Capitol.
All this paperwork right here, what are we looking at?
The areas of fraud that I have numbers for are mostly related to childcare. This is massive fraud that is beyond anyone's imagination, the scope. And so, for example, there's a childcare not far from here in Minneapolis that has two childcares listed at the same address. And together, they're licensed supposedly for 120 children. I have never seen a single child there ever, and I've been by that place at least 100 times.
These Somalians, these groups are setting up these daycares, these childcare centers, getting money from the government, but there's no kids.
No kids. Never had any of them. They're all fraught with violations, and even though they have these violations, they're still in operation and they're still getting money. And it's millions of dollars for every one of them every year.
And who's getting the money? And where are they getting the money from?
So we have a thing called CCAP. It's a blend of federal and state money. The bottom line is it's taxpayer money, so it's state money and it's federal money. And the problem is the people at the state of Minnesota are the ones writing the checks. This is kind of the maddening thing is you have daycare, so you have adult daycare, and then you have child care, and then you have health care. And a lot of these same names keep coming up on all of these different types of businesses. And then, of course, we have the transportation, and a lot of those same names appear, a lot of the same addresses. There's one building that has 14 Somali healthcare companies at the same address. There's another building in St. Paul that has 22 Somali healthcare businesses at the same address.
And the government knows about this.
The government knows, they're writing the checks. Yeah, the Democrats over there just writing the checks. What has happened is that the Somali community is a very closed community. They will not speak to anyone outside the community and talk about what's going on within the community. They vote as a block. And so when you're a politician, you're saying, look, I've got 100,000 people in Minnesota that if I do something for the community, they're going to vote for me. And that's what it's all about, is getting the votes. And then the people here in Minnesota, you hear this term, Minnesota nice. I'm so sick of that term. The people here are so afraid of being called a racist or an Islamophobe. And they're afraid of their own shadow.
So, yeah, we have a lot of fraud going down. Now, there's a full 42-minute video. That was only 4.5 minutes, but there's a full 42-minute video where his crew and, again, Nick Shirley and his crew go around and they go around and they get shown all of this in terms of the fraud. Well, the fraud, of course, this whole thing, once this blew out, Walz was immediately blamed. And, okay, now I want to make sure that we fully understand what I want to make sure that we fully understand what's happening here. Nick found fraud in daycare, healthcare, adult care, transportation companies. Okay. This is not the same. This is not the same as the fraud that was found with the child food, the feeding the children NGO. That's separate. So we not only have this going on, we also have that the feeding the kids thing that, of course, Walz was, all kinds of, all up in your business. Oh, I know how to feed kids. Trump doesn't want to feed kids. You remember that? Anyway, well, Tim Walz apparently has decided to push back. He's decided to push back. And he was responding to questions about the allegations made by Nick Shirley. And a spokesperson for the governor told Fox News that Walz has spent years working to crack down on fraud and has taken steps to strengthen oversight of state programs, including initiating investigations into several facilities. Yeah, I'm sure he has. The spokesperson added that Tim Walz hired an outside firm to audit payments to high-risk programs, shut down the Housing Stabilization Services Program entirely, announced a new statewide program integrity director, and supported criminal prosecutions. Now, folks, I'm just going to tell you this right now. First of all, we all know that well, I won't say all because let's just say, those of you who watch this program know that in Article 1, Section 8, none of this is a requirement constitutionally mandated by the Constitution, of course, to be a federal government responsibility. None of this is. Child care, health care, adult care, food, none of that is supposed to be in the purview of the federal government. See, this is the problem. They've expanded the federal government's responsibility unconstitutionally, and nobody has bothered to call them out on it because of the plain and simple fact that everybody loves to have a program, and it's all the feel good, it's all the emotions, it's all the feel good. Oh, you got to feel good about yourself. All your taxpayer dollars are going to help feed the homeless, the kids, the whatever group you want to add to it. And so there you go. That's what they're doing. But they're sitting there and they're essentially allowing this fraud to happen. They're allowing this fraud to go on because they don't want to look bad. Politicians will never want to look bad in front of their voters. Never. And so this is part of the problem. Politicians, all politicians, especially the career ones, they are all just jonesing for the next election. Once they get elected, they're already gearing up for the next election. And they don't really give a crap. See, this is part of the problem with the third-party payer system. Nobody cares about the quality of service. Nobody cares about the fraud. Nobody cares about the waste because it's not their money. It's not coming from their pocket. Why should they give a crap? See, this is the problem. And this is our challenge. This is what we the people need to be doing. Okay? We the people need to be standing up and saying, hey, hello, this is not, we don't have any ethical people in government because they don't care. They're looking toward the next election. That's what they care. That's what they care about. So, anyway, during a Sunday appearance on Fox News' The Big Weekend Show, Shirley said the alleged fraud in Minnesota is so obvious that a kindergartner, I should say, meaning a kindergarten child in kindergarten, could figure out that there is fraud going on. So, and as I showed you last Saturday, the fraudulent business couldn't even spell the word learning. It was leering, L-E-R-I-N-G, instead of L-E-R-N-I-N-G. It was closed. Yeah. So, this is serious. This is a serious bit of a problem. And to think that this has been going on for could be decades, something like this has been going on. And you sit here and you wonder how much has actually happened here. How much of this stuff is really going on? And you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, we're targeting the Somali community, which, by the way, it has since been revealed that it is a cultural expectation of these people to essentially be able to commit fraud against the government. Because where they come from, the government is so corrupt, it's acceptable. It's almost like collateral damage in war. It's acceptable. It's acceptable to them. This is a big, big problem. This is a big problem. And just the fact that it happened under the former candidate for vice presidency, Tim Walz, who swore up and down that he was smarter than, pretty much everybody else on the ticket, except for his, of course, running mate, Kamala Harris, who he would never, ever say that she was stupid, even though she actually was stupid and is stupid. But anyway, so Kash Patel, toward this, just as a point of fact, FBI Director Kash Patel has said that he has pushed additional personnel and investigative resources to Minnesota as a part of this ongoing effort to dismantle this large-scale fraud schemes exploiting federal programs. Well, I think their work is going to be cut out for them because it's not only happening in Minnesota. Not only happening in Minnesota, folks. In fact, it's even happening in other places under other states. Fraud is just expanding. It's going out further and further. I've talked to you about Maine. Maine had a Somali program that was a bit of a problem. And then we had, I think it was Maryland had a fraud problem. I can't remember exactly if that was Somali based or not, but it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Well, I'll continue with that here in just a moment. But first, I got to tell you, every morning I wake up with my giant 16-ounce mug of coffee. I say giant. I know 16 ounces isn't all that big. I mean, if I were drinking 32 ounces, that would be, 2 cups of the 16-ounce mug. That would be something. But all of that being said, that mug is filled with this wonderful elixir in the morning called coffee. And if you still haven't tried 1775 coffee, now is your shot. The 1775 starter kit is released. There's a limited number of units available. In each unit, you're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, as well as the Vitality Mushroom Coffee for clean energy and laser focus with no crash. All of these coffees are single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus, inside the kit, you're also going to be receiving a gold spoon clip, because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. You'll also be receiving a frother that is strong enough not only to stir up your coffee, but also your mother-in-law's opinions. Let's be honest, it doesn't take much for her to express her opinion. And you'll also be receiving a black 1775 tumbler. This is $170 worth of coffee and gear, all yours for just the low, low price of $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 coffee blow up on Rumble and wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler alert, it is. And by the way, one of my Whiskey Warrior P1s, G, says that 1775 coffee is a jolt sudden enough to start your grandfather's 1948 John Deere tractor. Probably the deep dark roast is, for sure. Anyway, go to 1775coffee.com. That's 1775coffee.com/studio. And by the way, that / is the question mark key. 1775coffee.com/studio. Grab your starter kit before they are gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. Go to the numbers, 1775coffee.com. That's 1775coffee.com / Grab your starter kit today. Get your morning kickstart with 1775 coffee. All right. Well, we talked about Maine. We talked about Massachusetts. There's even a little bit of something going on in Ohio. We'll get to those in just a moment. And now we have another state. This time it's a red state. And by red, I mean it usually votes Republican. They're taking a closer look and are doing Medicaid reforms that are drawing some fresh attention because of Minnesota's fraud crisis. Indiana Governor Mike Braun said on Sunday, Medicaid, which we share with the feds, all states are going to find low-hanging fruit to pick. We found folks that should have been on Medicare that were still on Medicaid, people double-dipping Medicaid through a couple of different states, pharmacies with a $340 billion program, buying drugs at a discount, selling them at high margins. We're just picking that low-hanging fruit. And that's why we are going to lead the country, he says. Braun, of course, then pointed to Minnesota, which is currently enshrouded in this fraud scandal, 2 fraud scandals, that has exposed widespread taxpayer abuse or taxpayer-funded program abuse, and has raised questions about oversight. Wall Street Journal, a report on Friday, echoed estimates that the fraud losses in Minnesota since 2018 could top $9 billion, highlighting cases in which bad actors openly exploited the system. Well, the journal, of course, went on to describe the repeated cycle of establishing sham companies and submitting false claims to take advantage of the system. Braun said that the solution itself to this is common sense. He said, I ran a business for 37 years before I became a U.S. Senator, was on health, education, labor, and pensions there. Yes, you can see what happens in a place like Minnesota where they just want the government benefits but don't do anything to run them like you do a business. Run it like a business. In other words, run it like you actually care about the money that's not only coming in, but is also going out. That's what they're talking about when it comes to running like a business. Folks, it's pretty simple. Just act as though the taxpayer money is your money. Believe it and do the things that are important to the people, but also be the caretaker of that money. Anyway, well, it's not just Indiana, too, by the way. And I'm just going to let you know that all of this is now taking a front seat in the federal government, because now we even have Senator Ron Johnson talking yesterday that he plans to use subpoena power to obtain records in the Minnesota Medicaid fraud case, calling the alleged abuse the tip of the iceberg and promising an aggressive congressional investigation into how federal funds were handled by state agencies. The Wisconsin Republican said in a televised interview, quote, I'm chairman of the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. I've got subpoena power, and I will use that to obtain these records because we have to get to the bottom of this. So, yeah. And again, there's close to 14 high-risk programs that are under review, which providers billed roughly $18 billion since 2018. Prosecutors have said that as much as half of that spending could be fraudulent. So again, that's where they're getting that $9 billion from. So, yeah, and of course, Governor Tim Walz and state human services officials are disputing that estimate, calling it overstated, while acknowledging widespread problems with fraud and oversight. The fact of the matter is nobody really knows. They don't know how much money is being fraudulently run through this. They have no idea. And Johnson has said that investigators need both testimony and documents, and suggested that federal agencies that route money to states should demand transparency from their state-level counterparts. See, this is part of the problem, folks. This is the problem. You have states like California. California is a perfect example of this. They have all kinds of illegal aliens within their state that they just granted, hey, guess what? Illegal aliens, we're going to give you free health care from the state budget. And the state budget is backfilled by the federal government dollars. The state goes and I mean, let's be honest here. They can potentially, if there's hardly any oversight at the federal government level, the state goes and charges back the federal government to recoup that money. See, this is why the leftists and the Democrats, they all sit here and say, oh, no, illegal aliens, they can't be getting funds. Yeah, they are. They're getting them because they're running them through a course of red tape and everything else, and they're basically sitting there and rebilling the system, rebilling the federal government to recoup their state losses. Don't think that isn't happening, because that's how this system functions. That's how this system works. Now, somebody who is in a very high, powerful position, House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, who is one of Washington's top-ranking Republicans, has stated that he is open to legal action against Minnesota's Democratic leaders following this video, this release of this video. Appearing on Fox News, everybody appears on the weekend shows. Appearing on Fox News, Fox Report Weekend on Sunday, Emmer praised YouTube content creator Nick Shirley's recent report, which alleges that several state-funded daycare and learning centers, largely operated by immigrants from Somalia, do not provide legitimate services. It's amazing to me, he said, that a 23-year-old journalist, a YouTuber who's now got over 80 million views on this thing, I bet it's closer to 100 million by now, anyway, have found more in a matter of hours than Tim Walz and Keith Ellison, our attorney general, found in 7 years. Emmer said that whistleblowers are coming forward. He also said that what those whistleblowers are saying is that they already told Tim Walz about all of this. They told Keith Ellison about all the fraud that was happening. And that those two not only didn't do anything, but they also retaliated against the whistleblowers. He continued and said, if that's true, if that particular piece can be documented, then these guys need to be prosecuted, held accountable, and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Representative James Comer, who chairs the House Oversight Committee, has already announced that he intends to subpoena Minnesota state officials and whistleblowers in a wider probe on the daycare fraud issue. Well, there you go. Now, Tim Walz, of course, a spokesperson for Tim Walz, says, no. This oversight probe is just a coordinated political attack to try and silence one of the president's most effective critics. Is he effective? Let's be honest. Do you really think that Tim Walz is effective anymore? I mean, the guy basically couldn't load his own shotgun that he swore he had owned for several years. He couldn't even, from my understanding, I never saw the video, but my understanding is he could barely figure out what was the air filter on his old Ford. Or maybe it was a Chevy. I don't know. Anyway, his old truck. Yeah. I don't think that Walz could find his way out of a wet paper bag with the opening wide open. I don't think Walz could figure that stuff out at all. So, yeah, he's just running interference. I'm telling you, people, I'm telling you this right now. We dodged a real bad bullet with those two, meaning Harris and Walz. And thank God they're not in the Oval Office. Oh, my gosh. Now, just imagine, we have 3 more years under Donald Trump, and hopefully, knock on wood, we're going to get an additional 8 out of whoever his successor ends up being. But yeah, this is just the tip of the iceberg, it seems. Well, all of these people that have been, a part of this whole thing, and let's be honest, this kind of stacks on top of this idea of immigration, okay? We have an immigration problem, and by immigration, I mean illegal alien problem in our country. Illegal alien problem in our country. And that extends even to some of these aliens or these immigration people that have come here potentially illegally and have gotten their, they're here for, what do you call it? I just had the thought in my head, the word in my head, but refugees, there we go. You got all these refugees and everything else. So all of this is coming out, especially with the Somalis. This is all coming out now as we're dealing with this whole immigration and ICE and everything else. Well, the FBI has actually gone so far as to say that they are working, or they are going to attempt to try and denaturalize and deport these Somali scammers. So they came here, they became citizens. They obviously weren't vetted very well, but they came here, they became citizens, and they, naturalized citizens. Now the FBI is basically saying, yeah, we're probably going to pull that. FBI Director Kash Patel threatened to do so. He said that some of the fraud that has been uncovered is just the tip of a very large iceberg when it comes to all of the fraud that has been taking place in Minnesota. Yes, we know this. In a statement on social media, Patel wrote, "The FBI is aware of recent social media reports in Minnesota. However, even before the public conversation escalated online, the FBI had surged personnel and investigative resources to Minnesota to dismantle large-scale fraud schemes exploiting federal programs. Fraud that steals from taxpayers and robs vulnerable children will remain a top FBI priority in Minnesota and nationwide. To date, the FBI has dismantled $250 million fraud scheme that stole federal food aid." That's the other food aid that I was talking about. "Meant for vulnerable children during COVID," which they never got. He continues and says the investigation exposed sham vendors, shell companies, and large-scale money laundering tied to the Feeding Our Future network. He also pointed out that many of these individuals are being referred to immigration officials for possible further denaturalization and deportation proceedings where eligible. The case referred to by Kash Patel earlier has seen 78 indictments and 57 convictions connected to the Feeding Our Future. Well, Ilhan Omar, being from Somalia, being naturalized, and being in Minnesota, a representative in Minnesota, oh, Nelly. Her husband is now in the crosshairs as the Minnesota fraud scandal questions are really, really pushing. Yeah, they are. Let's just put it this way. Somebody went and dug into her, where she's getting her money and all of this. Well, let's see. Let's walk through this. First of all, her husband is a venture capital firm that has now reportedly removed the names of multiple high-profile figures from its website as scrutiny continues to mount over this. According to a report published Saturday by the New York Post, the firm Rose Lake Capital has erased the names of 9 officers and advisors from its website between September and October. The changes reportedly occurred during the same period federal prosecutors announced the additional criminal charges connecting to the sprawling welfare fraud scheme in Minnesota. Then, the Post also reported that none of the individuals whose names were removed have been charged yet in the fraud cases. Charged at all. They may or may not be yet. But Omar, of course, previously introduced the legislation that critics say paved the way for what the feds have called the largest fraud of the pandemic. This is, of course, the Feeding Our Future case. Federal authorities have described the Minnesota cases as among the most significant fraud schemes uncovered during COVID-19. Now, her husband launched Rose Lake Capital back in 2022, and according to the Post, the firm reported that their valuation increased rapidly, rising from almost nothing to between 5 and 25 million in a very short period of time. The Post detailed that the names and biographies of Rose Lake Capital's officers and advisors were removed from the firm's website after prosecutors announced the new charges in the welfare fraud investigation. Those charged during that period included 8 additional individuals, 6 of whom were described as being of Somali descent. None of the officers or advisors listed on the firm's website were charged, though. Now, so here's some of the listed of people that have been pulled from their website. Lobbyist and former Obama administration ambassador to Bahrain, name of Adam Ereli, E-R-E-L-I. Former U.S. Senator and Obama administration ambassador to China, Max Baucus, B-A-U-C-U-S. Alex Hoffman, who was identified as an associate of the Democratic National Committee's finance chair. Former Democratic National Committee Treasurer William Derrough, D-E-R-R-O-U-G-H, and Keith Meistrich, M-E-S-T-R-I-C-H, who is also a former chief executive officer of Amalgamated Bank. Now, Meistrich previously described Amalgamated Bank as the national or the institutional bank of the Democrat Party. So these developments are starting to show. Now, keep in mind, Minnesota Representatives Omar's net worth starting in 2019 seems to have been listed at negative $45,000, and now in 2025 is listed at $30 million. Her congressional salary, by the way, is $174,000 a year. Again, here it is. I said it with the AOC. It's really funny. These people get into Congress, and all of a sudden, they go from like zero net worth up to 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 million. And what are they doing? They're public servants. They technically are not supposed to be taking any kind of kickbacks or bribes or anything like that. Yeah. Now, Omar, of course, has denied being worth that amount. But, yeah. Keep in mind the surge in wealth in Minette's 2 businesses, which are a winery and a venture capital firm. Yeah. Her surge in wealth is due to those 2 businesses. And now those 2 businesses may be tied to this? I don't know. I don't know. This is kind of curious as to what's going on here. So, yeah. So Breitbart reported that Omar has held events and parties at a place called Safari Restaurant, which is a Minneapolis, Minnesota eatery that has been named in some of the investigations. Those restaurant owners, Salim Saeed and Amy Bach, were convicted as a part of the Feeding Our Futures case. The ongoing investigations and recent reporting have prompted reactions from other lawmakers. Randy Fine recently announced plans to introduce a resolution seeking Omar's expulsion from Congress. Fine has also criticized Governor Tim Walz over the fraud, stating that Walz should be in jail. I agree. If he's found anything on there. But again, this is just the start. Folks, there's another report coming out of EBT fraud schemes happening in Ohio's Somali community. So here we have another independent journalist in Ohio. It was posted on X by Wall Street Apes. And, yeah, whoever this independent journalist is, has found that Somali-owned restaurants are often attached to grocery stores, allowing owners to use EBT cards to purchase bulk ingredients for their eateries. The journalist states, quote, every single Somali restaurant has a grocery store right next door or within eyeshot of the restaurant. They can just order everything they need to their grocery store that's right next to or attached to the restaurant that they also own, and they never have to fill a single cart. According to the investigator, these grocery stores are likely to report significant losses annually, which are used as tax write-offs, while the restaurants operate on cash, funneling the government-funded goods into profitable ventures. The journalist also pointed out the role of the polygamous marriages within the community, noting that multiple wives can claim benefits as single mothers, further maximizing their welfare payouts. Wow. He said, if you have 2 or 3 wives that don't claim, these women can go to work at Walmart full-time, $15 an hour, and still qualify for food stamps as long as they have a couple of kids. Yeah. So there we go. There you go. I can't even imagine. This is just like the tip of the iceberg, folks. These are everywhere. These people are everywhere. And they're doing all this stuff. We need full investigations into this. Or better yet, just abolish these damn programs. I mean, find the fraud, get rid of the fraudsters, put them in jail and everything. But now just go and abolish these programs. The federal government obviously cannot administer these things. So just get rid of them. Get rid of the program. If the state still wants to do it, that's state money. Who cares? That's up to them. I mean, I obviously care because that's still taxpayer money. But the fact of the matter is the federal government should just be like, you know what? We obviously are unqualified to do this, so we're just going to shut the whole thing down. That's what they should do. That's what they should do because it is unconstitutional. 10th Amendment applies here, people. All right. In the final minutes, I just want to pull away from this fraud, which is starting to kind of bug. Well, it should bug everybody. But in the final minutes here, I do want to talk real quickly about Trump, Venezuela, and the U.S. military. Apparently, Trump announced that the U.S. military destroyed a Venezuelan facility, which is marking the administration's first airstrike on Venezuelan soil. Up until this point, the administration has limited its strikes to Venezuelan boats alleged to have been carrying narcotics to the United States, and at least 100 people have been killed in those strikes so far. Now it appears the White House is escalating its military pressure on the Venezuelan regime, according to NBC News. In a short phone interview on Friday, Trump responded to a comment about Venezuela by touting the administration's attacks on the quote-unquote alleged drug boats before referring to a strike on a big plant or big facility that he said took place 2 nights earlier. Trump said, quote, we just knocked out, I don't know if you read or you saw, they have a big plant or big facility where they send where the ships come from. 2 nights ago, we knocked that out, so we hit them very hard. Trump did not provide any further details about the apparent attack on the facility, which, if correct, would be the first known land strike in the U.S. counter-narcotics efforts against Venezuela. Now, NBC News has not independently confirmed that strike, and the White House itself did not immediately respond to a request for comment about the president's remarks. All righty, folks. Well, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure you search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time I go live. Also, too, before you take off, make sure you hit those thumbs up, thumbs downs, or if you're 3 Chevy, thumb sideways across all of my platforms, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, or, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.